Hello and welcome to the video. In this video we're going to take a look at this model here. Now this is the Hobby King Glue and Go series EPP Shark. Wing is about 1.4 meters in length and is quite a decent sized model. Made of that EPP foam, similar to what we've already seen in one of our other videos. In that other video we talked about the trainer plane, the Tough Trainer 2, that was designed for pilots who are just finding their feet. Now the challenge that we've had with that is that because the prop is on the front, occasionally when coming into land, particularly with new pilots, it tends to be in the way of a little bit of damage. So in landings, and I've even managed to do it myself, if the plane tips over, there's a good chance you're going to snap that prop. Now that's not ideal for new pilots, and it can be off-putting when they break a plane and they feel bad about it in their first couple of flights. So I was interested in this really for those younger members of the audience who are looking for their first plane, or for people like me who have younger people in the family or friends with younger people in their families who want to have a go at flying something. And it's about getting a model that will be robust enough to get up there and fly reasonably well, but also survive those early attempts at flight from the new younger pilot. And this should fit the bill. Now this model is relatively inexpensive, it's only about £50–55. It doesn't come with any electronics, so you're going to need to add a speed controller, a couple of servos and a motor and receiver as well. And once you've got all those bits and pieces in, pop in the battery in and you should be good to fly. The thing I didn't realise when I ordered this was that it doesn't include ailerons, whereas the Tough Trainer has ailerons, rudder and elevator. Unfortunately this one is just a rudder and elevator, which is fine for a new pilot. Personally, I don't like new pilots learning to turn with the rudder because then it's a habit they have to get out of. I've had a couple of people who I've been helping to get to fly with the larger models where that has been a huge problem, getting them out of that habit so that they can use ailerons with rudder assist in turns. So in this video, let me quickly talk about what it's like to build, let me quickly show you how this thing flies, and then kind of give my summary at the end. So the first thing to do is talk about how this little guy goes together. The manual is pretty detailed, all the pieces come separately and you have to kind of glue the whole thing together in one go. The steps are clear, the manual is nice and colourful, and if you just follow the manual along you'll be fine. Now I originally started gluing everything together with epoxy, but very quickly found that EPP foam is very happy being stuck together with hot glue. So this is absolutely a model that you could build with whoever is going to fly it. So in my mind, I could see a couple of my friends with their young sons or daughter spending an evening or two with the hot glue gun on the dining room table making this thing up. Do be a little bit careful, make sure that everything fits first. As you probably saw in the beginning, our nose wasn't completely lined up, just the way that the foam had been cut, but a couple of little V cuts with a craft knife and we could quickly reposition everything. Build time is only about an hour and a half from start to finish, and then you've got the little bit of time messing around, setting up the servos, configuring the radio and the other pieces too. Do take care when you're thinking about the motor in particular that you want to pop on the back. The motor that we've used here is one of the older motors from the very first series of quadcopters that we built 3–4 years ago, and it's probably a little overpowered and it's probably a little bit big for what we need here, and all of that weight way up there on the dorsal fin, although that prop is nicely out the way in the event of a landing, it also meant that we had trouble getting the central gravity right. So for us, even with a really large battery, we had to glue some big metal weights into the nose in order to settle it all out. It's actually helped it fly better, it penetrates wind a little nicer because of that extra weight in the model, but that's not necessarily ideal, so do have a look at the suggestions on the Hobby King website and try and pick a nice light motor that'll do the job. In terms of flight, it's very easy to fly as well. Hand launching is easy, so it's very similar to that kind of Bixler Skywalker style with that ventrally mounted motor and prop. It's out the way of the hands, so you can run along in the field and throw it into the air, and it glides and flies really nicely. That big wing means it's very low wing loading and it flies really well. Tip stalling isn't really a problem, and it's very stable. Perfect for a new pilot. it does look kind of funky as well, particularly for the younger members of the family who've seen it. They think it looks cool, which is, I guess, part of the point. I'm not sure that I want to fly something that looks like a shark myself, but then I've been flying for quite a long time. So before I sum up, let me just give you a couple of build tips from when I built ours here. So I would say still use epoxy for joining the ends of the wings to the main central part of the wing itself. There are struts that go in there, but using epoxy allows you to get everything perfectly lined up and get a really good strong joint in there. There are those extra pieces that go into position that do reinforce it as well, and using epoxy allows you to cut a slit in the wing and the wingtip with something like a craft knife, and then coat the strengthener with epoxy and then push it into place. Everything else will absolutely be fine with hot glue. You might end up having to have a little clamp or two because some of these pieces have to be pushed together and held together while they go off, which again means that hot glue is a good choice. Be careful on some of the edges of the foam. The particular thing that caught us out was the rear box section where the horizontal stabilizer goes on. I was trying to get everything to line up and found that I was slightly off and ended up just having to pull the glue seam apart and remake it with another bead of hot glue. And the reason for that is that the edges of the foam aren't always at exactly 90 degrees, so just take care of that as you're building it. If you follow the instructions in the manual and don't deviate from that process, it does seem to get the model more or less there. I was trying to be a little bit clever when I built ours and got it slightly out, which meant that I had to do that very small adjustment. Other couple of tips. Doesn't talk about fitting the battery strap that comes with the model to the balsa tray that you have to build. There are two balsa parts that you have to put together. One is the battery compartment that goes in the nose, and the second is the hold for the 9-gram servos that actually fits in the belly with control rods that go up to the elevator and rudder at the back. Both of those are very easy to put together with just some nice thin CA or super glue. If you just do that into the corners, then it will go together well. That's probably the only part of the build, if you're doing it with a younger member of the family, that you might want to do so they don't get into trouble. Do watch that motor. If you have too heavy a motor at the back, you will have trouble with central gravity, so do think about that and don't put one of your old big clunky motors like we did. That'll just get you into more trouble than you need. And the last thing we did was cover the bottom of the model with clear tape to help with landing and cleaning, because it always belly lands, sometimes harder than others, and being able to wipe all the muck off keeps the model looking nice and keeps it looking like a shark. So in summary, what do I think? I like the plane. I wish it had had ailerons. I understand why it hasn't had them, but I'm tempted to get a craft knife out and maybe cut some ailerons into the wings and add a couple of extra servos too. If it had those as well, it would be an amazing trainer, particularly for a very young, new or inexperienced pilot, because it takes an awful lot of abuse. That EPP waxy foam is pretty indestructible, and you can ram it into the ground again and again and it just doesn't seem to care. For me, this would be a perfect first plane if you're a parent or a guardian, or you know somebody that wants to try and fly and you don't want to give them the sticks to your more expensive models. This is a very cheap and cheerful thing to put together. There's probably things in the spares bin if you're a pilot with a couple of years under your belt that you can just throw into the chassis for about 50 quid. You can have a flying model and you can give a younger pilot the experience of flight for the first time without having to worry. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. We try and release at least 2 videos a week, usually a quick tip on a Tuesday and a more in-depth video on a Friday, and sometimes we manage to get a few more out as well. If you're interested in radio control, then the playlists are useful to have a look at. Anything that's called Introduction To is an organised set of videos that teach you from first principles about the subject that you're interested in. But we also have information about the majority of popular open source flight controllers, how to build quadcopters, fixed wing models, reviews, setups, unboxing, all kinds of things in here as well. So if you haven't already had a look at the playlist, then I'd recommend going and have a look through here to see if there's anything that takes your fancy. Finally, we do also provide updates through things like Twitter, Instagram and also post all of our 3D designs on Thingiverse as well. So if you like what we're doing here on YouTube, have a look at those things and subscribe to us there, and you'll find out what we're up to in advance of the videos coming out here on the channel.